some more people in as we go here, but we'll get going on time. Thank you all so much for calling in tonight. We have great information lined up for you from the acquisition folks at the Deanna Langman. I'm the Montana PTAC State Director here in Montana, and we've got Christy Cummings-Dossing on the line here. Christy, she's our advisor in Kalispell there. And I'll talk more about PTAC later in the program, and many of you have worked with us, and so you already know us. But for those that might not, PTACs specialize in helping businesses with government contracting. And what that means is tonight we're talking about wildfire contracting, but you can imagine, these government contracts, whether it's with the Forest Service or the Department of Defense or BLM or the VA, you name it, they are business opportunities for our companies. And so that's where we come in. PTACs are funded by the Department of Defense and then local matching funds. We do not charge you for our help. We help navigate all the systems you've got to be on. For wildfire contracting, it might be, it's probably SAM, Viper. It could be any number of other systems if you're doing business with other agencies. So like I say, I'll talk more about that later. Tonight's wildfire contracting, but there could be other business opportunities that PTAC can help you with. And so keep that in mind. Just before we introduce our contracting staff from the Forest Service, just a couple of housekeeping items for tonight. We've got a lot of people on the call. And in order to get through the material and save time for questions, I think the best course of action to make sure we get everyone's questions answered is to hold your questions. And we're going to have a chance at the end to ask live questions. And so keep that in mind, make some notes as you go along so you don't forget your question. And the best way to ask questions is to use the raise hand function. And you can find that at the bottom of your screen. I believe it's under reactions. Is that right, guys? So if you scroll down at the bottom of your Zoom screen, let me just double check that. Oh, that's actually not where it's at. Just a second.
Top right.
Is it the top right?
That's on iOS. It is. It says more, and I got the raise hand when I click there.
On the top right?
Yep, under more. For me, anyways, on iOS, Apple products.
Geez. I guess I've maybe never actually used that. Well, anyway, I'll figure it out and I'll let you know how to do it. But that's probably the best way, is to raise your hand. Now, after we get that figured out and you actually raise your hand and ask a question, make sure that you take your hand down after the question, because otherwise Christy and I can't tell and remember who's asked a question and who's, who still needs to ask a question. So do that. And then I think we're pretty good with everybody having their mics off. I see a couple people that don't. Please double check that. It makes for a smoother meeting if there's no background noise. Bottom left of your screen is the mute button. And let's see, what else? The chat.
If you have the participant screen on, that's where the raise hand is.
That's where the raised hand is. Okay.
Yeah. So if you have that screen open, you should have a raised hand. I think us as hosts, we don't, but everybody else should.
Oh, that's the difference. Thank you. Yep, that makes total sense. So at the bottom of your screen, participants, yes, that's where that raise hand function is. Thank you, Christy. What else? So the chat function is on. Try to avoid asking questions in there. It's hard for Christy and I, especially with this many people, to keep up with that. So try, but put it in there if that's really, the best way. We'll keep an eye on it either way. So with that, I think I will turn it over to our guest speaker tonight, Ryan Patrick. He is with Acquisition, the Forest Service, and he is going to be presenting information on the upcoming wildfire process for solicitations and everything else, and some big changes this year too. So looking forward to hearing from him. And then there are some other staff from the Forest Service on, and I'll leave that to Ryan to introduce. And Ryan, thank you for joining us tonight. And You're going to share your screen and put your slides up.
I will. Yep. Yeah. Welcome everybody. Thanks for coming. Appreciate the turnout. I know this is a lot different than what we've done in the past for pre-proposal meetings, but that said, there's been a lot of differences in our world these days. So thanks for your patience as we work through this. There is a lot of change this year, and I'm going to jump into that. One of those is myself. I'm the new guy, Northern Rockies contractor liaison. My predecessor was Tim Murphy. I guess the one good thing about these Zoom meetings, good advice that Tim gave me is, make sure your fly's up when you're presenting. So I don't have to worry about that too much for Zoom calls. So that'll be good. But with that, I do want to introduce Jeff Gardner. He's our contracting officer for the Forest Service. And also Chris Loris. He is our equipment specialist for the Forest Service. And I'm going to be relying on them heavily. They've got a ton of experience, very, very great people to be working with, and I'm lucky to have them. So yeah, guys, jump in whenever you see an opportunity where you might want to add a little bit more information to what I'm giving. But with that, I will share my screen and we can jump into the PowerPoint. All right, so I wanted to start off that I work for the Northern Rockies Coordination Group. I am a Forest Service employee, but we do fire as an interagency group. So I just wanted to point that out right off the bat as we get into this information. We've got a lot of partners out there, federal and state, that we're working with to try to accomplish this fire mission. That we've got, just go down the line here and see who's all a member of NRCG, multiple state organizations, BLM, BIA, Fish Wildlife Service, National Park Service. So we couldn't do it without our partners. And that said, we couldn't do it without you guys as well. So thanks again for all you do. And I just wanted to give you a little bit more on the Northern Rockies Coordination Group. They were established to provide an interagency approach to wildland fire management and all risk support on all land ownerships within the states of Montana, North Dakota, North Idaho, and a small portion of South Dakota and Wyoming, which is basically your Northern Rockies geographic area. The purpose of NRCG is to further the interagency cooperation, communication, coordination, and to provide interagency fire management direction and all risk support for the Northern Rockies geographic area. So they do a great job getting information out to folks to make sure we're all heading the same way with what we're doing out there. They are the group that approves the NRCG solicitation plan, and so with that, I'll jump into what that looks like. And I just had a notice on my screen. My mic changed. Is everybody still hearing me okay? Give me a thumbs up if you're getting an audio. Thanks.
I can hear you.
All right, appreciate that. Like I said, there has been a lot of changes this year, and just walking through this solicitation plan, I can point out a few of those. Right off the bat, the Type 3 caterer that the BLM in the past has been soliciting for will not be soliciting for this year, and we will be doing EERAs for this year with the Type 3 caterer. The BLM, they ended up having some issues. Their contracting officers were told by their solicitor, their government lawyer, that some of the things that they were doing with their warranted contracting officers was out of scope. And so that was one of the reasons that they weren't able to continue with this interagency approach to contracting. So there's, yeah, like I said, there's a lot of changes. There's issues with the states as well. DNRC, their agreements were no longer, our contracting officers are no longer able to co-sign on their agreements moving forward. So with DNRC's type 2 crews, it's going to be a state only non-competed agreement with that. And then as you go down the line, here's another one that the BLM has done in the past, the fuel tender. That is one that, in the future, that's something that can get picked up through Viper with the Forest Service. But as it landed this year, it was off on the solicitation cycle, and it won't actually be on that cycle again for two more years. So moving forward for this year, that process is going to be through an emergency equipment rental agreement. Another one that is new for the Forest Service is the trailer mounted hand wash stations. The Forest Service picked up this solicitation because DNRC in the past was doing the porta potties in addition to the trailer mounted hand wash stations. And like I said earlier, with our contracting officers not able to co-sign on those agreements or contracts, we wouldn't have been able to pick up that resource if we wouldn't have solicited through it with Viper this year. The Heavy Equipment Task Force, that's something that we're working through kind of as we speak to try to get a solicitation out there for this year. So it's still up in the air. We're hoping that that's going to be the case. But I guess if you are a Heavy Equipment Task Force, just stay on your toes, because that we might end up having to do something different, potentially extending the solicitation that we had from 2018 with that. So just try to stay in the loop as much as you can, and we'll do the same to let you know what's happening with the Heavy Equipment Task Force. Masticators and chippers we're soliciting for this year, and the miscellaneous equipment. And then down here in the past, like I said, again, BLM wasn't able to do their solicitations, and the Forest Service this year, which is new, is going to be doing the gray water and the potable water as well. So just a breakdown, a little short list of the solicitations coming out this year. Again, trailer mounted hand wash stations, Heavy Equipment Task Force. I just put an asterisk next to that because it is still being worked on and isn't going to have the same close date as these other solicitations because it hasn't been solicited for yet. And, we don't know for sure if that's going to be the case or not yet with the Heavy Equipment Task Force. Masticators and chippers, miscellaneous heavy equipment, the road graders, skidders, feller bunchers, and then gray water tenders and potable water tenders are the new solicitations for this year. I wanted to get in a little bit to some of that change I was talking about earlier, and that has to do with our Forest Service acquisition group. So in the past, our Forest Service acquisition group would report to our region 1, the northern region, and so they would be under the directorship of our regional forester. So what changed there is the acquisition group is they've moved up to a national level. So they're they're falling underneath the Washington office and the chief of the Forest Service. And some of the reasons for that is, and the main reason for that is it was a mandate from USDA to streamline their business process and reduce the duplication and bring those folks together to try to attain some more consistency throughout the acquisition community and what they were doing. So that's some of the reasons why that happened. And I'm going to give you kind of a breakdown of how that looks as far as incident procurement and the solicitations that we're doing. So for the Forest Service, the overarching acquisition group now is called the Procurement and Property Services. And they have some subunits underneath them. The one that we're concerned with is the incident procurement and operations. And specifically within that, the equipment service branch is where our IBPAs are being taken care of by this branch here. And here's just a breakdown of what this looks like. So as we moved into this new organization, the concept of zones came into play. So like I said, in the past, our Forest Service Acquisition Group used to just be focused on our Region 1 boundaries with the Forest Service. And so with the Equipment Service Branch, they've actually, now they're a bigger organization, more contracting officers within that organization. But now they're covering a zone, and we've got two zones within the Equipment Service Branch, that being the East Zone and the West Zone. And as you can see, the East Zone, which we're a part of, is Region 1, Region 2, Region 4, then Region 8 and 9. And then there's also some national contracts that the East Zone does as well as the NERV, which is our rental vehicles that they handle for incidents. And I just wanted to kind of give you an overview of the contacts within the Equipment Service Branch, the contracting officers. And one of them we have on the call with us today is Jeff Gardner. And I'm hoping this will open up for us to take a peek at that. Here we are. So like I said, the national solicitations that are being covered by the East Zone are being covered by Kim Luft as a contracting officer. She's the supervisory contracting officer for the East Zone. She's going to be doing the clerical support trailers, communication trailers, helicopter operations support trailers, GIS units, crew carriers, and mobile laundry. Jeff Gardner is going to be doing our Region 1 medical services, our heavy equipment, miscellaneous heavy equipment, and heavy equipment with water. And then Rashana Workman will be doing our water handling, weed wash, and then our potable water and gray water in the trailer mounted hand wash stations. And then finally, we've got two more contracting officers, Randy Sadler doing the chippers, fallers, mechanics with service trucks, and the fuel tenders. And as you can see, like I pointed out earlier, that solicitation cycle was last year for Viper. So that won't come up again for another couple of years on the fuel tenders for the northern region. And then we've got some more, another contracting officer, Taylor Jones, who's doing some solicitations that are for Region 4 and Region 2 only. I did want to point out that there are some equipment service branch vendor outreach sessions that are going on. There was one yesterday. that I attended. They did a really great job, running through a contract, pointing out the different pieces of that contract and kind of the meaning behind some of the some clauses that are in those contracts, and kind of gave an overview of where you can find these contracts, down to how you can submit your quote for those contracts and the process of that. And we can get into a little of that, and I think there's going to be plenty of time at the end of the session to hopefully answer some questions if there are some, but do know that they do record these meetings. So if you're not able to attend at these times, that they are recorded, and you can go and view them at a later time if it doesn't work for you. There's a registration link that I will get out to Deanna for folks to go and register for these meetings. It's a pretty simple form that you fill out, and I'll just pop that up so we can take a quick view of what that looks like. Just kind of ask company name, address, and whether you're new, which region you're from, which meeting you are going to attend, and this is new. It was still open earlier today, so we've got, I guess, two more sessions that are open for those ESB zone for vendor engagement meetings. And then I also wanted to point out that if today or on Thursday you aren't able to get your questions answered, there is a Viper question inbox, and this is the email address. Again, I will make sure I get this information to Deanna to blast out to all the attendees today, so folks can ask their question if they don't get the chance to do that today. I wanted to hit up on IROC and dispatch overview updates. So this is our contracting for fire yellow box that has a lot of really great information for folks to look at. And one thing I wanted to point out for folks is with IROC, which is the new resource ordering system, it allows vendors to self-status themselves, and you can find that information here on the contracting for fire. And if you Google Northern Rockies Coordination Center, you're going to find their website, and you'll be able to find the contracting for fire piece in the yellow box in here to get to that, to get to this page to find more information if you're not familiar with it. But they do have some good help guides for folks to run through and look at how to go through and self-status your resource, which is right here at this link here. So just to, I guess, give you a quick overview. So here's the Northern Rockies Coordination Center homepage. And contracting for fire is, if you go down to the Northern Rockies coordinating group, you can click in here and you'll see a link to the contracting for fire page, which is right off to the side here. Lots of other really great information in here as well. Good source for folks if you're starting out or if you've been in the game a while. You can find a lot of great information here, but just wanted to give you a little bit of navigation on how to get to the contracting for fire. Yeah, feel free to contact myself if you have questions as well, and I will definitely do my best to help you out. And so with the self-statusing, I guess there's a couple cautions to make there. if you can't staff it, make sure you're not making yourself available. I know there's a lot of changes and through the year, and you might have students working for you or something like that, where they might have to head back to school. So if that if that does happen, just try to stay on top the best you can, making sure you're not making yourself available when you might not be able to do to staff the resource that you do have. Another instance that happens is, if you get hired on by an insurance company through another contract, make sure you're taking that resource and statusing it unavailable as well. So if you are doing that, just make sure you're keeping up with the changes. Another piece I wanted to point out, and this goes for like the type 3 caterers that we're not going to be able to solicit for this year, and other equipment that we don't have solicitations for, but there is a need for this equipment, and that's our vendor source list. A link is going to be added to that contracting for fire yellow box, where you can go in and click that link and add your information. Here's some specific examples of some of the things that we're not soliciting for, but we do have a need for. And it just, really what it does is it compiles a list by dispatch center. So we know what's out there and what can be offered, if the need arises, and we can go there and be able to get that information and get a equipment, an ERA set up, the closest dispatch center to an incident if needed. And it allows you as vendors to be able to notify us of things that you might have that we're not soliciting for. So be on the lookout for that. It will be posted here soon to be able to supply that information to us. And that was my presentation. Pretty quick, but I know that there is a lot of questions out there. I did want to show you really quickly just how to jump in and look at some of the solicitations and how you can go about doing that. And if you just go into Yahoo or Google and search for beta.sam. It's a little bit slow here. But if you search for beta.sam, you're going to go to that website. And within that website, there's another search bar that you can go into. And if you just put Viper, you're going to get a list of all the different resources that are out there for solicitation. Looks like it's going to work for me here, so I'll give it a go. I did this earlier, didn't like Windows Explorer, so I think I might try another browser. And appreciate your patience. It looks like my connection's a little bit slow, but this shouldn't take long, and I can just give you a quick view of what that looks like. And while I'm waiting for that, I guess I just wanted also to touch on a new process that we're doing this year, and that's our technical evaluation submittals. So we are not going to be doing inspections before award this year. What we're going to have folks do is submit this technical evaluation, and it's a separate process from your quote and Viper, where you're going to be taking pictures of your equipment and answering some questions in that form to submit to an email. So you'll attach all this information, shoot it off in an email, and that's the information that we're going to be reviewing to let our contracting officers know whether you pass or fail as far as the technical evaluation goes, if your equipment meets the specifications or not. In here in beta.sam, just going to search Viper, and that is going to pop up all the different solicitations for Viper. So here we have our chippers for region 1, 2, and 4. Click in on that. It has some additional information on that, and the solicitation package here that you can click on to review.
Ryan, we lost sound on you. Or I did. Ryan, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, good. We're fine then.
All right. Are you able to see this okay?
Yes, I can hear it. Thank you.
All right. So here we have our solicitation. Randy Sadler's contracting officer. This is for chippers in region 1, 2, and 4. And it's an 80-page solicitation that hopefully some of you have seen before, but if not, definitely you want to read through that pretty carefully to make sure that you're getting that information filled out, or getting the information we need from you. And if you need help from that, if you're unfamiliar with this, I guess I would go back and say that these ESB zone meetings do a really great job of walking through this process. There's videos out there that they've produced to help you through the process. And so, yeah, definitely take advantage of those zone meetings. There's still a couple that are available to get in there and sign up for. But that's really all I had to present to you today. And I know we've got quite a bit of time for questions, but we've got quite a few folks in attendance. So I will pass it back to Montana PTAC and let them go over their piece, and then we can jump into the questions. Thank you, everyone.
Yes, thank you, Ryan, very much. First of all, I apologize for those that got on late. We had an unexpected technical glitch with our capacity. Sorry about that. It never fails. As much planning as you do. I guess the good news is we did record this, and we will have it available for you to watch later, and we'll make sure everyone gets that information as well as the slides from tonight's presentation. But also, if you don't know already, Thursday night, we have another session just like this with Ryan and his team. And so if you want to sit in on that one, please let us know. We'll get you in that one and get you the right link for it. And also, Ryan mentioned those zone meetings. Those are about 3 hours long and go into a lot more detail, like he said, going over the solicitations and whatnot. So anyway, I'll just give you, I think I'll do a screen share just real quick and show you how to get a hold of us at Montana PTAC. Ryan, mentioned couple of systems that you're all familiar with, SAM, if you've been doing this a while anyway, and Viper and IROC, and we can help you with all of those systems. Don't suffer through it yourself. If you, get stuck, you need to call PTAC. We specialize in helping businesses get through some of these steps and processes with, with the government. And tonight, like I say, we're talking about wildfire contracting, but honestly, through the year, there could be other business opportunities for you. Some folks on the call tonight, they only do fire contracting, but other, if you're a construction company or, maybe you do excavation or catering or what have you, there could be other business opportunities with other agencies outside of the wildfire season. So that's what we try to help you figure out. Now, Ryan alluded to that solicitation. And if you haven't had experience working through one of those, they can be a bit daunting. They're depends on the nature of the solicitation, but they can be 90, 150 pages plus long. And so we can really help you work through that. Make sure that when you do put an offer in, that you've met all the requirements, you understand, what the solicitation is asking you to do, and make sure that, you get it right. And so don't hesitate to reach out. I'm just going to share my screen real quick. So you can see our website. Is it showing up? Can you see the PTAC website, guys?
Yeah.
We could just a second ago, but now you're back to an email.
Gotcha, sorry. It's the two screen thing. Okay, so Montana.
Now we got it.
Very good, thank you. MontanaPTAC.org. You can see here we have quite a lot of information about all the different. Somebody needs to mute. Okay, there we go. All right. And we do have 6 locations in Montana. Christy is in Kalispell. I'm in Billings. Rosalind is here with me in Billings. I believe Shannon and Lillian are on the call tonight from Great Falls. And I don't know if we have anybody else. I didn't see any names, but here is, I'll just click on locations. And,
I saw Carly pop up too.
is in Lewistown. Yep. So we have Billings, Lewistown, Great Falls, Kalispell, Missoula, and Hamilton. And all of us, well, have a fair bit of experience with wildfire contracting, but like I say, we help with a lot of other kinds of opportunities. So here is, it's kind of a maps, kind of match your county with the center that serves your area and all of our contact information. And so just go to MontanaPTAC.org. And Christy, do you have anything you'd like to add with wildfire contracting or perspective that would be helpful?
Start early, especially if you're new. Yeah, I sent out an email to most of my clients who've done some fire contracting in the past, just as a reminder, that there are some steps before you can submit a bid, especially if it's your first time. So you have to have a DUNS number, be registered in SAM, be registered with Viper, which includes getting an e-authentication account. So there are definitely some steps. None of it's too onerous, but there are a lot of them that have to be done in order, and some of them take a little bit of time, and you don't always control once you click submit how long something takes. So if you're thinking about doing it, get started early, and we've got a little more than a month before these solicitations are due. So if you haven't done all of the registrations in those systems, please contact us now so we can get you going.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And it sounds simple enough, registering online, but trust me, it's not. Take advantage of our assistance. We can help you get it right the first time and save you a lot of frustration and bewilderment and time. So with that, I think I'll stop there and just give us a ring. And well, let's see, Christy, can you?
Looks like we got a hand raised.
Okay, I'm going to stop sharing so I can see more people here. So if you want to, I can't see the raised hand, so whoever has it.
Steve, you got your hand raised?
Yeah, there we go. Just had to find my unmute button.
Wonderful.
I don't know if you're ready for questions or not yet, but
Yeah.
pardon?
Yep, you're on. You go right.
Okay. Well, this question would be for Ryan Patrick. And what we're wondering is with the looming possibility of $15 an hour, minimum wage increase, would it be possible on this solicitation to actually take and put a provision in there, should that happen, like the end of June, first part of July, that we could just do an automatic increase on the daily rate, perhaps? That way we wouldn't have to go back through and try and resolicit, because that's going to be a very big impact to what people are bidding. I don't know if you guys have given that a lot of thought or not yet.
Good question, Steve. And I think I am going to have to haven't heard any talk on that, but maybe Jeff has.
Yeah, this is Jeff. We're aware of the the news that's gone around about this, and currently it's kind of a if and when type of situation. And so right now we're kind of plugging ahead with the current wage determination that we have, and it's going to be a situation that, once again, if and when it happens, we're going to revisit it then. I mean, we understand that's a major change that's going to affect people in a major way. I couldn't tell you right now, what the plan of action would be if that came out, say, in June. But there's definitely going to be a situation where things are revisited. So, without really having much information myself on what this is, that's coming down the pipe at us, other than, I pretty much know the same amount as everybody else, just from the news, basically. It's just, I want folks to know that we're not just going to say we had this massive change in a wage determination, too bad, suck it up. There's going to be some, like I said, we're going to have to revisit it. I don't know what that looks like yet. And in reality, a provision in the agreement wouldn't necessarily work in the sense that it's, a DOL push, and there's already provisions behind those DOL wage determinations when those changes are made that would allow us to go in and revisit that. So I'm sorry I don't have more information for you on that, but we are definitely keeping an eye on it and, working on planning for if that does happen.
Okay, can I just do one more follow-up question here real quick?
Sure.
Okay, the other thing, I'm a newly elected representative for the state of Montana now, and so I get to visit with a lot of folks. One of the things that, in talking up on Capitol or the Hill here at Helena, was the cost of rising fuel prices that's looming as well. We're looking at, I was told by one of the Petroleum Association people, maybe $3.50 a gallon, perhaps by summertime. I'm just wondering if there's any way, when we're doing these bids, if we can, before we were kind of limited in what we could bid. It was kind of the unspoken cap that wasn't a cap. How are you guys looking to handle that this year? Are you going to allow people to take and bid more this year than if we were in the previous years, or just kind of wondering how you're going to handle that there?
Well, and that's another tough one, because that's another if and when. I mean, that's, we're predicting, that to possibly happen. So it's tough, because we don't want to say, okay, set your prices for if we're looking at $3.50 a gallon fuel prices and it not happen, or vice versa. Don't set your price for that to happen and it happens. I will say that when we're doing the government estimates, for costs on these for fair and reasonable, we do factor in, market conditions and what direction those market conditions look like they're going. And so we try to, just like you, predict, real world price changes and stuff like that. And we do try to, build in those estimates, that type of thing. So, I mean, really that's as much as I could really give you on that in the sense that, we try to forecast that as well as you. My best advice in these situations is, and I've told a lot of folks this, is price where you feel comfortable. And then if it's, if we need to talk about it, after the solicitations are closed and maybe negotiate, we can do that. But that's a tough one, because once again, it's kind of a looking into the future. But like I said, just like you guys, we're trying to do that as well.
Yeah. Okay. Well, thank you, Jeff. That's just a realistic thing that's out there that I want to make sure that, everybody's on the same page and addressing.
Yeah. And we understand that. We see it coming too. And we're, we're not here to say, we got you on the fuel. We want to make sure that you guys are doing good and that you're covering your costs as well too. So we're watching that stuff and trying to look out for that.
All right. Appreciate it.
Okay, don't be shy. This is a good time to ask some good questions. Just raise your hand and unmute your mic and go for it.
Hey, this is
It
John
looks like,
with Auto Mastication.
Hi, John. Go ahead.
Yes, hey, quick question. What is the status of upcoming fuel reduction programs throughout the regions in the state this year? What is the update, or how is that looking for 2021?
I'll go ahead and jump in. This is Jeff again.
Hey, Jeff.
That how you doing, John? That's a good question. I would have to say, and somebody can jump on and slap me if I'm wrong here, but that one's a little bit out of our wheelhouse in the sense that falls over into what I call, quote unquote, the regular contracting side of things. In the sense that it's not necessarily emergency fire suppression activity, and so it falls kind of into a non-emergency contracting process. I know that our past goals, we were increasing fuel reduction. Once again, it's one of those things that I don't necessarily know what the future will hold on that. With the change in administration and changes like that coming along. My best advice for that is to definitely look at Beta Sam or watch Beta Sam, because that's where you're going to see those solicitations posted. So I can't, like I said, I can't give you what our outlook looks like. Last I heard, we were increasing that or trying to get more of that in. That might change, or that might stay the same. Sometimes those trains are hard to stop once they get going. So definitely keep an eye on Beta Sam for any of those opportunities coming up out there, because I'm sure that there's going to be some stuff popping up.
Copy that. I appreciate that.
No problem. And definitely now, between now and June is a good time to watch. That's when everything starts popping up. So keep an eye out there for that stuff.
Thank you very much. I would greatly appreciate that.
No problem. Thank you, John.
I heard someone else earlier when John was getting on. Who was that?
I think Steve, you had your hand up next, the other Steve, and then Cody.
Yeah, I did. This is Steve. Just wondering if the training certifications are going to remain the same for potable water and hand washing units, simply the RT 130 refresher.
Yes, those will remain the same. Those will still fall under our Northern Rockies Incident Business Management Handbook, Chapter 20. It kind of lays that out there for our vendors if they're either in camp or going to on the fire line. That's a requirement that will remain the same.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Cody, you're up.
Well, my question's for, I guess, be the guys on the Forest Service side. We were setting up to do the task force with all of our equipment, and with what I've heard today, would we be better off putting our masticators and everything individually, or can we do both, put our equipment under one and under the task force?
Good question.
So yeah, this is Chris with the Forest Service, and you can do both. So if you have miscellaneous heavy equipment like feller bunchers, skidders, and masticators, they would all be eligible for the miscellaneous heavy equipment agreement. And then if we're able to solicit for the heavy equipment task force this year, you can still put in for it, and that equipment that you have on agreement would be, you could use it on the heavy equipment task force.
Perfect. Thank you so much.
You bet.
Bonnie.
Hi, this is Dale Flanagan. On the drop and go on the lowboys, do we get compensated if we cannot gather a lowboy up at the end of our demo?
So
Oh yeah.
So if I'm tracking, Dale, if the fire released your transport, it's no longer on the transport, or the transport's not on the fire, then your equipment gets released, if I'm tracking you, and then you have a hard time tracking down a transport to haul it. You're asking if you'd be compensated for that travel home?
Correct.
So
Or
your travel,
until we can get a lowboy.
oh, no, not necessarily. So once you're released, then you would in fact be released, and then your travel would be calculated from the time of your release to until you get home. So yeah, I guess that is a potential risk there, that yeah, the government wouldn't be obligated to pay for your equipment after it's released.
Okay, that has happened before. We've missed fire calls, other fire calls, because we weren't able to get a lowboy from where we were demoted.
Okay. Yeah, and you know, with busier fire seasons, it tends to be a pinch point with transports being able to mobilize them to the fire, demob them, or move them between fires. 17 is a good example where we were, yeah, we felt the effects of that pinch point. So.
Yeah. Thank you.
So Stuart Anderson.
Oh, I guess I had a question again, and I did talk to Chris and Ryan, or emailed them on it. I talked to Chris about the Blackwater issue in the gray water issue, if we got anything figured out yet, or.
Okay, yeah, so the latest on that is, fingers crossed, they're working towards changing the language in the agreement. It's not done yet, so it's not guaranteed, but we did elevate that up to the folks that coordinate this at the national level, and they did push through for a change in that agreement to allow it to. So the original Viper language on the past solicitation was close to the language that you were familiar with the BLM agreement, whereas a Blackwater truck would be allowed to be used as a gray water truck, but it would have to be cleaned beforehand. So again, I can't say with certainty that's going to happen, but that's kind of the last I saw it. That was the momentum. They were going to try to get that corrected back to the original language.
Well, and to Chris on that, I would have no problem if they, when we clean up one of ours out, if they wanted to inspect the inside, where we'd have to open the manhole for them to inspect, if that would help get us to where we could use those, I'd have no problem with that.
Okay. Yep. Understood. And then again, like I say, we've all of us that could say our piece have said our piece, and now it's just got to clear the final hurdles. So again, I feel fairly confident. I feel decent that it will likely happen, but again, it's not done yet. So we'll just have to continue to pay attention to it.
Okay. I had one more question too, and that was on potable trucks. I noticed in the solicitation that they said that you had to have a check valve out of the tank before a fitting, okay?
Okay.
So like, you know, when we set ours up, our check valves are right on our pumping unit, you know, both of them, you know. And
Yeah.
like even a stainless potable tank, you know, there is a flange there that comes directly off those tanks, you know, so it's just about impossible to, you know, it says connection is the way it's stated in the potable. So I didn't know how strict they're gonna be on that, or.
Yeah, and you know, after this call, you and I, we can chat offline and make sure, you know, your specific example, if that's going to be okay. I hope it would be, since it has been in the past. There's a lot of perception on the language and the, you know, the change over to Viper. They get pretty, especially when it comes to like if you're filling out of a hydrant with the backflow prevention devices, and people get really kind of wrapped around the axle on that. So yeah, it'd be worth our time. I think you and I can kind of chat offline.
Yeah.
See what you have.
All right. Thank you.
You bet.
I don't see any more hands up.
More hands up? Okay. Well, we'll give it a minute and make sure everybody has a chance to jump in if they want to. And if
Okay, Steve. And then Ginny.
Oh, actually, Ginny just texted me, so we were just wondering, is it going to be a lot like last year with the electronic demobbing, and what's online for COVID precautions and whatnot this year? Do you have any thoughts or ideas on that?
Yeah, I feel like it's still a possibility to kind of have some of those same precautions that we had, you know, last year in place for the demobbing electronically. But yeah, I guess it's like it's kind of what's the future going to hold, and you know, at this point, you know, it's looking, I guess in my eyes, it's looking like, you know, we'll probably have some of those same processes in place that we had last year. And we're, you know, going to be watching CDC guidelines to make sure we're following what's being recommended, and doing everything we can, and trying to stay up to speed like everybody else with that. But yeah, I know we're doing after action reviews and looking at how things went with last year, how we can do better. You know, what went wrong, what can we fix? So we're trying to improve on, you know, if we get into that same situation as we did last year, but yeah, time will tell.
Okay, I do got one more follow-up there too, if you want, Ryan.
Okay.
And that's on, you had mentioned, you know, or someone had mentioned there about on your status, you know, if you have multiple pieces of equipment, typically what we do anyway is we'll have that equipment status is available. If there's 4 trucks and you got 2 crews, then as soon as you get dispatched for 2 crews, then you take the other 2 and put them unavailable, depending upon what they're calling for, if it's a 6 or a 3 or a 4. Is that still appropriate?
That sounds appropriate to me. I can double check with our dispatchers, but that seems like that would be appropriate. Yeah, once you know they're unavailable, putting them unavailable.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, Carol, you're next.
Okay, my question is on the hand washing. It shows in the solicitation you can be within 450 miles of the DDP. And I'm wondering, since it's 3 different regions, it doesn't list any DDPs. Does Region 1 have specific DDPs that we're going to be working out of?
Yeah, and I'll let Jeff jump in, but I'm thinking that yeah, you should be able to select the dispatch center that you're closest to within that once you get into that solicitation and start filling it out, you'll be able to see the dispatch center that you would put your resource with. Does that answer your question? Am I not quite following?
Yes, yes, that's fine. Thank you.
So this is Jeff. Let me add one more thing to that, because I noticed that you said that the working in the 3 regions. The zoning that happened with the contracting officers, that doesn't mean that the region's zoned as well. So the solicitation that came out, it's being advertised as a multiple region solicitation, but you're still going to be, if you put in for a region 1 dispatch center, you're still going to be a region 1 piece of equipment. And if you were to go outside of region 1, that would still be considered like an out of geographic area assignment. Does that help answer it as well?
Yes, I just wanted to make sure that I got in the right dispatch point that I wanted. Thank you.
Okay, perfect.
So Steve, you're up next, and then Matt.
Yeah, just wondering on the hand wash trailers, the remaining year of contract under the DNRC, does that just fall by the wayside, or what happens with that?
So for this year, that is going to be only available for state use. So yeah, DNRC would still be able to make orders on that. But as far as our other federal partners, we're not going to be able to use that DNRC contract anymore. So that's why we did pick up the trailer mounted hand wash stations in Viper. So at least we could have that resource available for all of our NRCG partners. And then the other part of that DNRC contract was porta potties, another piece of it. I guess we're wanting to see that handled from as a commercial item, so paid for by credit card moving forward. So that's kind of where that contract is end up. So it's not by the wayside, but it's pretty limited as far as its use being restricted to DNRC.
Okay, that's what I was wondering, if they were gonna dispatch out of Viper, or if DNRC controlled fires, they'll revert back to the remaining 1 year of the contract. Thank you.
You're welcome.
So Matt, you're next, and then 9 Mile Roadhouse. Matt, if you're talking, we can't hear you. So
Matt's on mute, so.
yeah, or he wasn't muted and I still couldn't hear him.
Okay, I got you.
So Matt, I'll let you play with your audio for a minute. 9 Mile Roadhouse, you got your question? And then Matt, I'll come back to you if we can hear you.
Yeah. Hi, this is Shauna with 9 Mile Roadhouse. I had a couple of questions. Being that we are going to be on an EERA this season instead of a solicitation, how does that work in terms of our the food standards that we serve? Is there going to be a set guideline like there usually is? Or that's our question, is how do we bid for these jobs?
Jeff, do you want to speak to that a little bit more on, I guess, what an EERA would look like when it came time to utilize that instrument for incident?
Yeah, I'll try to take a stab at it. And this is probably, there's probably more planning going on behind the scenes with this as well. But I'll try to tell you what it would look like from my side if I were approaching this to put it under EERA. Most likely what they'll do is they'll have the same food standards that were back in the Type 3 caterer agreements. And when they go to EERAU, they'll just incorporate those into the EERA. And so my thinking with some of the work that's maybe going on in the background is that we're probably creating those, or just basically taking them out of the old agreement, updating them like we usually did, and then we'll probably post them on the NRCG site under the business section. Something along those lines where there's going to be a place for you to find those food standards ahead of time, to take a look at, to see what we're going to expect when it comes to doing an EERA. The reality is with an EERA, we can spec them just as heavy as we do these preseason agreements, but it goes in at the time, and then the rates are negotiated at the time, and we're a little more flexible with those. So I'm hoping that we will have something posted for the Type 3 caterers that's kind of like a, hey, when we call to put you under EERA, these are the specifications that we're going to require under that EERA, just like you used to be under that BLM agreement. Does that make sense?
It sure does. Jeff, this is Scott with 9 Mile also. The agreement we were held to before was a Type 3 agreement. Will we be stepping up to a Type 1 or maybe even at the national level? Is it going to plane out that way, or are we going to be doing pretty much the same type of fare as we did last year?
I would guess, and I don't get over into the caterer world a whole lot, with the national caterer stuff. I would guess that it's going to remain at the Type 3 level. For an EERA coming from us, that's probably what it's going to be. And the reason for that is just because when you start talking in like the Type 1 and the national caterer type stuff, you're kind of getting over into that contracted world of that contract out of Boise. And so, we have those numbers, and off the top of my head, I think it was like 150 and below is when we can call a Type 3 caterer in. And then once that goes above that, the routine, how we
absolutely
have to flip over to a national caterer. So I would say from us writing an EERA, it's definitely going to still be in that Type 3 world. Now, sometimes when we get into a really crazy fire season, the contracting officers in Boise who actually administer that national contract will actually start writing EERAs for caterers, to start filling in the gaps. And that possibly could be something that they could do just because they're the COs over the national catering agreement. I don't know if they can do that legally with that contract they have in place, but I wouldn't be able to overstep that, but they might be able to. But for the purpose of the question, within Region 1, we would keep it at Type 3 for those EERAs.
Understood. That being said, I've heard that there's some negotiation or maybe some discussion about different numbers and possibly those numbers going up. Have you heard anything to that? Or I know they're in the middle of a negotiation, I believe, this year. Aren't the nationals still pending?
I haven't heard that, but at the same time, I probably wouldn't hear that. You'd probably actually know better than me, being in the industry. I haven't talked to those guys at least since last season. So I probably wouldn't hear what's going on with that anyway. But I would definitely, keep your ears open to the rumor and stuff going around and see what you hear. And you can always give those contracting officers a call down there and kind of ask them some of this. This would be great questions for them.
Would that be Mary Fields, or who is our point of contact going forward with this?
Well, Mary Fields, I believe, is the COR still on that contract. And Chris, you can correct me if I'm wrong. So she'd be a good one to talk to. And then I don't have the name off the top of my head for the CO down there, but maybe as someone else is answering a question, I can dig that up for you.
Okay, greatly appreciated. Thank you.
Yeah, no problem.
All right, Matt, any luck getting your audio working?
Yeah, I'm not sure. Is it working?
Oh, perfect. Yep, we can hear you. Go ahead.
Okay. Yeah, can you explain IROC and what that is and what the capabilities are? Like what what does that do? I'm familiar with SAM.gov and everything else. I've never heard IROC.
Yeah, I can take a stab at that, Matt. It's what our dispatchers use to dispatch the resources. So it's kind of a database that houses all of the resources, where they're at, their information, and then when something breaks and they need to start dispatching folks, they can go in there. They create the resource orders in there and make contacts with folks to get them their resource order and get them headed in the direction of the incident. It's a new resource ordering system. That the previous one was called ROS, and this resource ordering system is called IROC. I'm not exactly sure what the acronym for it is, but that's the system used by our dispatchers to get folks to incidents. If that helps.
Okay, yeah, I was checking it out right now. How do you request? Basically, how do you get on it? It's really kind of difficult to use.
Yeah, there's a lot of instructions that you'll have to navigate through. I think if you're in the I don't know what the website is, but the Fire IT, I believe, if you're in that website, they have some guides that you have to go through, and you have to request access to some other systems before you can get access to the IROC system. And there's an approval process that you have to go through to make that all happen.
Matt, where are you at?
Billings, Montana.
Okay, you need to call us. We'll help you with IROC.
Oh, perfect then. Thank you. That's all I had.
Okay, Erlene, you're next. And then Cody's iPhone. Erlene, you're muted if you're talking.
Can you hear us now? No, you just muted it.
Yep, go ahead.
Oh, okay. This is Rick Osberg. We have Osberg Fire Services, potable water trucks, and hand wash. But the question I have with the potable water trucks, if we have to put a check valve right at the tank, we can no longer bottom fill on those tanks. I've invested over $700 per truck to get the double check valves and everything that the city requires. So that check valve right on the tank would be a real pain. I have a check valve at the pump, so it can't, if I'm pumping into a shower or a kitchen or whatever, it cannot come back and contaminate my system.
Okay, yeah, I hear you. And this is Chris. So Rick, and so I was much more familiar with the BLM specifications because that's what we've historically had here. So admittedly, I need to take a better look at the one of many solicitations that I'm supposed to be familiar with. So let me bore down into this check valve issue, and then I'll reach out to both of you. And, maybe we'll just talk one-on-one on what the interpretation of this is and how we can move forward.
Okay, great. That would be nice.
Thank you.
Thanks.
You bet.
Okay, Cody's iPhone.
I got another question for the task force guys. So required on the task force, there's 5 pieces of equipment. 1 transportation is what it was saying. Do we have to line up transportation for the other 4 pieces, or are we supposed to just use 1 lowboy to move them all to the particular fire or whatever? I'm not really understanding how that works, so I just wanted to clarify that.
As of the last solicitation, there was a minimum of 2 transports. 1 had to be fully operated. In other words, had to have its own transport operator. The second transport could have been operated by one of the equipment operators. So I need to make sure that some of the language doesn't conflict with what we previously had. But yeah, at minimum, you're supposed to have 2 transports to haul the equipment to the fire. So the thought is you can bring 2 in, drop, and go and fetch the other 2.
Perfect. Thank you.
Okay, Steve, and then 9 Mile Roadhouse.
Yeah, this is just a comment or maybe a question for Chris. Steve Reveland, Never Thirst Water Service. Chris, when you sort out that check valve situation, can you also key me in on that, whatever that turns out to be?
Yep, I just added you to my list. Will do.
Okay, thank you.
And 9 Mile, go ahead.
Hi, yeah, I had a question. With our solicitation, we were limited to Region 1. And with us being on an EERA this year, I'm wondering if that opens us up nationally or if we're still restricted under that EERA to be in just Region 1.
So this is Jeff, I can take a stab at that. So basically you were limited to Region 1 in the sense that your contract could only be used in Region 1. So those BLM agreements that you were under, they were basically only good within Region 1. If you were to go outside of the region, you'd have to, basically somebody would have to probably write you an EERA to go outside the region. So I don't know how many other regions actually have quote unquote type 3 caterers kind of spec'd out like we do, but you could work outside the region as long as somebody would write you an agreement for that. Does that make sense? So you basically you could travel. So if somebody in Colorado said, oh, we need a type 3 type caterer, and they made contact with you, yeah, they could write you an EERA. You'd be free to travel. It's just without the pre-season agreement, the agreement would have to be written at the time of order, versus dispatch ordering you off a pre-season agreement.
Right. So our prices are then determined for each call. Then it's not a set breakfast, lunch, and dinner price like it usually is. Then
you could negotiate at the time the EERA is written.
All right. Sounds good.
So yeah, so you would set your pricing at that time. So I mean, if it was the middle of July, you could set your pricing at that time with the EERA.
All right. Sounds good. Thank you.
I don't see any other hands, but I wanted to point out a comment that Wanima put in the chat, and thanks for putting that in there. She said, I'll be honoring the trailer mounted sinks on the DNRC agreement for this final year, but I won't be adding it to the solicitation when it comes up for bid in 2022. DNRC will still be soliciting for toilets and sinks in the future though. So thanks, Wanima. How about guest? Got your hand up. And then Brian and Rob.
Hey, Jeff Holliday here. This is probably for Jeff Gardner. Are we raising any of the ceilings this year on transports or heavy equipment, or any noticeable changes?
To be totally honest with you, Jeff, I haven't even looked yet. And so I'm going to probably crack that open once stuff closes down. So it'll be one of those, like I said earlier, price how you need to price, and then if we need to negotiate, we'll negotiate. But yeah, I haven't really dug into that yet, if that makes any sense.
And is there any way you can just post those ceilings? And I guess, like transports, and I can think of some of the dirt working equipment, some of those have not noticeably changed since this started in 2008. So at some point it would seem like they have to go up.
Yeah. As far as the posting them, I'm sure you're all familiar with Debbie. A couple of years ago tried to kind of do, like she was calling it, reverse auction type of deal. We can't really post them in the sense that we don't make the government estimate public, you know, for anything we do, just because that you know, we want the competition to kind of drive the pricing for things. But at the same time, you know, I would like to make it easier in the future to kind of say, hey, this is where we're shooting for, you know, instead of, you know, you're over and I call you and say you're over and you come down by 50, and then I call you and say you're still over and you come down by 50, you know, I mean, that can kind of go back and forth quite a bit. So, you know, with this new organization, we're looking at a lot of new ways of doing things. And that's maybe one way where we can pick up some efficiencies in the future. And we've got to kind of still follow the law and the federal acquisition regulation with this stuff. So we're looking for creative ways to do that, plus maybe being a little more efficient in price negotiations. But as far as the transports go, to be honest with you, Jeff, I've been kind of this is actually my first year as the heavy equipment CO. As you know, Debbie had it for all those years. You know, that's one thing that when program did the you know, the fair and reasonable pricing analysis that, you know, hopefully they're looking at. And so we'll take a look at it, like I said, once we get a little closer to the solicitation closing, you know, and see where that competition lands, and take a look at that. So, but I mean, it goes back to, you know, market pricing. We need to look at what industry is charging and what it costs you guys in the commercial marketplace. And so hopefully we're doing that. That's kind of the best I give you right now. I know it's not really an answer, but us, you know, we're looking at that and we want to be fair, as I guess as best as I can tell you right now.
No, that sounds good. I mean, I was partly getting at it from Debbie's, the way she did it, like on the modifications year to year when you could adjust prices. I think she got upset enough with people that if they raised above the ceiling on there, she wouldn't even negotiate and would just knock you off. I didn't know if you were going to kind of keep up. That's why I was asking if they could just get published so we know where we're at if we want to be on the high end of things.
Yeah. You know, I definitely want to, I don't want to knock you off, you know, and I definitely want to negotiate, you know, that's what we're here for. I mean, that's how this works. And so, you know, if you're too high or what have you, you know, we're gonna have a conversation and see, you know, I'm going to talk to you about, you know, why are you high? What are you pricing in? And, you know, sometimes maybe we miss something that we need to take a look at, and, you know, or you're too high and we got to bring you down. I mean, it's to me, it's a conversation that we need to have, not necessarily you're too high, I'm done with you, see you later. So yeah, I mean, you know, I'm willing to have those conversations and want to have those conversations. So, you know, we'll see where everybody lands when this closes, and then approach it from there. So, but I definitely, you know, do want to have those conversations with you. I'm not going to leave anybody just hanging.
Okay. And then one more quickie here. It might be more for Chris or maybe you. Follow up to what Dale Flanagan was getting on with the low boys. And I have not looked at the new solicitations. Did you kind of change your outlook on how the transports are supposed to be used? Are we supposed to assume they're getting dumped when we get to the fire? Has anything really changed there from how it's always been?
So unless it's on, I think, severity or initial attack, the default setting is that the transport's released. So the fire has to do something to maintain the transport. They have to, you know, there has to be an agreement between the fire and the vendor to say, can we maintain your transport? So if the fire doesn't say we're going to keep it, then again, the default is released. And that isn't, you know, like contract operations position or the CO's position. That's still being driven largely out of the fire operations folks.
Yeah. So, I mean, that's kind of how it always has been. It's up to them, but most of the time the transport just kind of stay. I mean, are you pushing things differently to try to ease up some of these transports for other people to use? I mean, is there some kind of directive that you're getting at, or is this just the same thing we've always done, basically?
You know, it's the same for the time being. Once we get into fire seasons like 17, where transports are a pinch point, NRCG will usually start reaching out to the teams and just have conversations. Again, they can't reach into a team and say, you will release a transport, but we'll start having those conversations with fires as far as, hey, this is having an impact. Can you release some of these transports? But that, again, that's a fire season to fire season kind of scenario. So as I would say, third week of February going into this fire season, it's going to be pretty similar to what we've done in the past. And then as we need to adjust, we'll try to make those adjustments.
Hey, that sounds good. Thanks for the Q&A. It's pretty helpful.
Okay, Brian.
Yeah, hi.
We can hear you, Brian. Go ahead.
Can you hear me? Okay. Okay, I was wondering if somebody could clarify the virtual instructor-led RT 130 classes, and if we end up going that route, the kind of validation of the work capacity test process.
Yeah, so this is Ryan. So they have, the fire management board has sent out direction and told federal agencies that they would like to see RT 130 done in a virtual setting. And so that's, I mean, that I'm trying to work to get some direction from to come out through NWCG, so that can apply to both our contractors and our state partners on some direction for that for everyone else besides the federal agencies. The work capacity test, they also came out with direction on how you can implement that safely. And so with that, we do have our training memorandum of understanding holders that do work capacity tests and follow the NWCG standards for those work capacity tests. And so those are still required, and folks are going to be doing those. How best they see fit this year, following the CDC guidelines and any other guidelines that have come out, either from the federal government with the Fire Management Board or some of the other direction that they've seen with that. So it's not clear, I guess, to put it that way. And I'm trying to find some more clarity with that on what that looks like. The one thing vendors can, self-certify for the work capacity test on the light work capacity test, but doing that, they're also taking on that liability. If you have somebody go down, whereas these training MOU holders, they're following MWCG guidelines, and they're having people fill out medical evaluation. They've got EMTs there, so there's a lot more support and structure with that. But that said, yeah, it is still unclear, and I'm trying to work to try to find some clarity, but it's difficult in the environment we're in to get that.
Okay, thank you. I just wanted to make sure that we're on the right track, because that WF star link through NWCG, it looks like it's trying to offer that virtual option, but I couldn't figure out or navigate how to sign up for it, and it sounds like it's not really available.
And I believe that is providing information for folks for those folks that are putting on the refreshers, and whether that's virtual or in person, or how those training MOU providers are doing it. I guess, a source of information, not only for contractors, but also for federal agencies to go to that and get that wildland fire refresher training information from what I understand it to be.
Okay, that makes a lot more sense. So you're still probably better off just going through a training provider for this season.
Yes.
Okay, Rob, and then Sandra. Oh, sorry about that.
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you, Rob. Go ahead.
Yeah, so my question is pertaining to fuel tenders. With the fuel tender being on the ERA this year, just the same as Type 3 cater, is that gonna be the same where we're kind of running off previous contract as a guideline when we do the ERA? And then also, we're going to be multi-regional with that ERA as well. And is it going to be the same with negotiating price and everything being able to want one?
Rob, that was just a tad bit hard to hear. There's a lot of background noise. I'm not sure if that's coming from you. Were you all able to hear his question, Ryan and Jeff?
Yeah, I think I heard him. So basically, the same thing that I talked about with the Type 3 caters would also apply to you. One thing I would look at with fuel tenders in particular is that there is a Viper template for fuel tenders out there. So most places are going to want to incorporate those type of specifications into an EERA when you do that. So I would take a look at the Viper specifications, and you can go into the Viper site and like Google. I always Google Viper lookup, and it takes you into the Viper site. And there's a spot on there you can click on solicitations and pull up the current solicitation template. The solicitation is not out right now, but you can pull up the template, and that'll show you the specifications for a Viper fuel tender. So if I'm going to do a fuel tender EERA, what I usually do is I put a note in the EERA that the EERA, needs to abide by all terms and conditions of the current Viper fuel tender solicitation template. And those are kind of your package specs right there, which the Viper specs are going to be pretty much what you were already dealing with the BLM agreement, because a lot of those specs we pulled from Viper to put into those agreements when we do those packages, those BLM solicitations working with the BLM. As far as being a national resource, yeah, you can go wherever you want. If somebody's going to write you an EERA for it, one thing with EERAs that's a little tough is just to let folks know that you're available. But usually, we'll get phone calls. I'll get a phone call and say, hey, do you have any fuel tenders up in Region 1 that's available? And so word of mouth usually kind of spreads that around. But yeah, I mean, you can, if Region 2 needs fuel tenders and they're reaching out to the other regions, if Region 2 wants to write you an EERA, you can head down to Region 2, Region 4 or whatever region is in need. With that, just like the caterers, the price is going to be negotiated at the time the EERA is written. So when they call you up and say, hey, we'd like to put you under EERA, negotiate your price right then and there with them on what you're going to need to get to those other regions or what have you. One thing I would, and Chris, jump in if I'm kind of going off track here, but I saw this a lot this last year. One thing I do is if you're going out of region on an EERA, is I would try to get inspected as close to home as possible. And this goes for anything that goes out of region on EERA. Just because that way, if you get inspected here and you pass, you don't have to worry about getting, say to California, not passing and then traveling home with no pay. So I've been telling everybody that, whether it's EERA vendors or Viper vendors, to get inspected as close as possible to home, before going out of the geographic area.
That's a good tip there. Okay. All right, and I do have one more question. It goes to the RT.
Yeah, this is Chris, and yeah, I just would second that. That's some good advice for any of the vendors heading out of the GAC.
Okay. Can you guys still hear me?
I can barely hear you, but if you go ahead and ask, and I'll see if I can hear you.
So I have another question with the RT 130 refresher. So last year, the 2019 refreshers were good for 2020. Are they going to do the same thing where if you have a 2020 refresher, it's good for 21, something like that, or does everybody need to get a new RT 130 refresher this year?
Yeah, everybody will need to get a new RT 130 refresher this year. Is the direction. So it doesn't, if you did get it last year, it doesn't carry over for this year. You will need the RT 130 for the 2021 season.
Okay, thank you very much.
Yep.
All right, Sandra Berry.
Good evening. This is Greg Berry speaking for Sandra. Jeff Gardner, Greg Berry in Hamilton. Jeff, can I get your mailing address, please?
Yeah, it's the same mailing address I've always had. It's the because I moved offices and then I moved back to that same office. So let me pull it up here so I'm not giving you the wrong info. It is 5765 West Broadway, and that's Missoula 59808.
Thank you, Jeff. And it's been a pleasure working with you all these years. God bless you.
Well, thank you, Greg. Appreciate it.
Okay, Steve.
Yeah, I just had one other question on the RT 130. Are those, I haven't looked through the solicitation a lot for potable. Are those going to be part of the solicitation that needs to be turned in by March 31st? Or can we get that done later than that, say in April?
You could get that done later in April. It doesn't have to be a part of the package.
Okay, thank you.
And I don't see any more hands at the moment.
Okay, well, we'll give it just another minute here just to make sure. Don't be shy, jump in. Any other questions? And just raise your hand. I think that's probably it, huh?
This is Jeff. I wanted to say real quick for the 9 Mile Roadhouse folks. I'm having trouble accessing the Boise site right now. I'll give you a call tomorrow and get you that contact info on the National Caterer Contracting Officer.
Okay, hey, that'd be appreciated. Thank you very much.
And Ryan put the Viper question email into the chat. So anybody who comes up with a question later or has got something that they don't want to ask in front of the group, that is available in the chat for you to send them an email. So thanks for doing that, Ryan.
All right, well, that's probably a wrap then. Ryan, Jeff, and Chris, thank you so much for coming on tonight and sharing all this information. And like I mentioned earlier, a little glitch in the capacity. John, can you mute? Thank you. Anyway, we'll have it recorded. We'll get that out, but we do have this very same meeting on Thursday night. And so the link that you logged in with tonight will not work for that. So if you want to sit in again on Thursday night, then contact any of us at the PTAC, probably really contact me or Roz here in Billings, Christy or Patty in Missoula, and we'll make sure you get the right link for Thursday night's meeting. Okay. With that, I think we'll call it a night. Christy, do you have anything?
I got one more hand. Steve?
Okay.
Yeah, I was just gonna ask Deanna if she could provide her phone number at PTAC, please.
I'll put it in the chat, but my direct line is 869-8410. And then Rosalind is 869-8413. And then just a reminder, go to montanaptac.org and all the contact information for all of our 6 locations in Montana is there. And then Christy just put hers in the chat too. Okay. Is that it?
And for anybody that I haven't talked to recently, it's the same number Doug had.
Yep. We stopped calling her the new Doug, but that's
Every now and again, I still get a, hey, I'm looking for Doug Bolander. So
exactly. Well, great. Well, thank you all for tuning in, and thanks to all the acquisition team at the Forest Service. And I guess I won't say safe travels home because you're already all home. So have a good night, and call us if you need some help or have some questions. All right.